The Seattle loss hurt, no sugarcoating it, but if you think this team is cooked, you're not looking at the whole picture. But history also says something else, and here's the part no one's talking about. The 2026 season might actually be the Let's talk about the painful loss and then address the hope of next season. We're going to recap the divisional round loss to Seattle and then shift gears to why the 2026 season is more hopeful than ever. Quick, true, and false start. The 49ers' 41-6 loss to Seattle was the worst playoff loss in franchise history. The answer is false. Painful? Absolutely. Historic? Yes. Worst ever? No. The final score, Seattle's 41 and 49ers 6. That makes this the second worst playoff loss in franchise history, trailing only one game, the 1986 nightmare. That worst loss goes all the way back to January 5th of the 1986 season. Giants 49, 49ers 3. Joe Montana was the quarterback that day, and he didn't even finish the game. He was knocked out by the Giants' nose tackle Jim Burt in what's still one of the most brutal hits in playoff history. And here's the connection. Both games were total offensive collapses. No touchdowns, no rhythm, and no chance. The 1986 loss is still the worst. This Seattle game, unfortunately, is right behind it. And honestly, this one fell apart almost immediately. Seattle returned the opening kickoff 95 yards for a touchdown. 13 seconds in, 7-0 Seahawks. And the Niners never even led. That pretty much set the tone for the entire night. Offensive struggles, 0 touchdowns. The only points came from 2 Eddie Pinheiro field goals, 1 from 40 yards and 1 from 56 yards. Now, let's talk kickers for a quick second because this mattered all season long. Jake Moody had a really strong leg, but struggled with accuracy. Before being released, he was only hitting 70% of his field goals in 2025. He missed 2 huge kicks earlier this season against Seattle in a close win, and that pretty much shook his confidence and our confidence as a fan base. Enter Eddie Pinheiro, my guy. Since joining the 49ers, 15 for 15. 100%. This guy's clutch. Sure, he doesn't have Moody's range or strength, but the analytics will tell you, you keep the guy who doesn't miss the kick. Stability matters. Put it in the uprights. Brock Purdy did battle, but the stat line tells the full story. 140 pass yards, 15 completions. Without key playmakers, especially someone like George Kittle, this offense just struggled to sustain any drives. Defensive breakdown. And defensively, it came down to one thing. You could not win a playoff game if you can't stop the run. The Niners gave up 175 rushing yards. Kenneth Walker was the difference. 116 yards and 3 touchdowns, tying a Seahawks playoff record. All right, moving on. Because the story of 2025 wasn't just the major losses, it was injuries. And the next season, reinforcements are coming. Nick Bosa's return. Nick Bosa is expected back after tearing his ACL in week 3. And without him, the numbers are ugly. Without Bosa, the 49ers average 1.1 sacks per game, worst in the league. With Bosa, he commands double teams and still posts a 17.2 pressure rate. Top 5 in the NFL. When he's out, quarterbacks have a clean pocket, and that exposes the secondary. Fred Warner's return. Fred Warner also returns after suffering a broken ankle in week 6. He's the green dot, the play caller, the traffic controller. Without Warner in the playoff loss, 175 rushing yards allowed. When he's off the field, runners are getting more yards before contact because gaps aren't being filled correctly. Now, let's talk about the draft. The 49ers currently hold 8 picks in the 2026 NFL Draft. And here's the big one: 3 third-round picks. You may not remember this, but let me remind you who the Niners have found in round 3 throughout history. Fred Warner, Frank Gore, Terrell Owens, and Joe Montana. That's not hope. That, my friend, is history. The 49ers are projected to have around $39 million in cap space. That is huge. In recent years, they've entered the offseason over the cap or with less than $5 million, constantly reconstructing contracts just to survive. So starting with $39 million, that, my friend, is a luxury. It means they can actually be buyers in free agency. So let me ask you this: what should the Niners prioritize next season? Offensive line, defensive line, safety, or a true wide receiver one? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. Current news. Some good things just dropped this week. George Kittle underwent a successful surgery on his torn Achilles. And according to Kittle himself, he plans to return well before November, ahead of the normal recovery timeline. Now, if that's true, that would be huge, because we all know the difference that George Kittle makes in the locker room and on the field. The lingering question is Jauan Jennings. Jauan Jennings is set to be a free agent. He led the team with 9 touchdowns this season alone. So the question is simple: do we play him or do we let him walk? That's going to be one of the defining stories of this offseason. Wide receivers. Robert Saleh to the Titans. Robert Saleh is headed to the Tennessee Titans. His leadership will be absolutely missed. Nothing but respect and wishing him success wherever he goes. But now the big question becomes, who fills his shoes as defensive coordinator? Because that hire matters more than most people realize. Yeah, this season had a tough ending, but it wasn't all bad. This team is definitely far from broken. Healthy stars are returning, draft capital, and cap space. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll keep riding with the faithful all off season. This has been the Niners Signal. See you in the next one.